Disclaimer, this is more for the retirement phase, someone over 59 and a half. But this is powerful. This is repositioning qualified assets to life insurance. How does it work? Individual over 59 and a half. They currently have assets in qualified accounts. What we would do is typically roll assets into a term certain immediate annuity. And then we would use this to fund a whole life insurance policy or a survivorship whole life policy. Ed Slott, America's IRA expert. He's a CPA. I stole his wording, taking forever taxable money and turning it into never taxable money. I want to mention the Secure Act of 2020. You will probably never hear this from another advisor. The Secure Act of 2020 should actually be called the Unsecure Act, because what it did was it gutted the stretch IRA provision. What does that mean? Previously, after both spouses are gone, the children could stretch out the tax liability over their entire life, and it was a pretty good deal. Congress never created the provisions for that, for it to be an estate planning tool. And so they gutted it. So now, after both spouses are gone, and there are a couple exceptions, the children must take it out in either a lump sum or over 10 years. Now, what I always like to ask people, when people hit the lottery, do they take the lump sum or do they take the annuity? They almost always take the lump sum. Here's an example. Let's pretend this is 20 years down the road, but I like to ask people all the time, do you think taxes will be higher in the future? Just yes or no. I've asked that question well over 1,000 times and everybody has said yes. Didn't the United States government just get downgraded? I had one person say no, and I don't know what they were on. Let's use an example, because I had a client very similar to this. $1 million of IRA money. He has 3 children. And I asked him this question. Who are you so madly in love with at the Internal Revenue Service that you plan on leaving them a whole bunch of your money? He goes, what are you talking about? And I said, you do realize all that money is actually not yours. And he had 2 high-end advisors. The government allows your advisors to charge a fee on a portion of your money that's actually not even yours. It's actually the government's money, but the government lets you pretend that it is. So let's assume a 40% income tax rate in the future. If taxes are going to go up, out of $1 million, that's $400,000. He had 3 children. The children get $200,000 apiece. And I said, you figured out a way to make the Internal Revenue Service the primary beneficiary of your life's work. How does that make you feel? And it turns out that he actually had way over $1 million in IRA money. So what did we end up doing? We ended up doing this right here. What you do is, it's a direct rollover into a 5 to 10 year period certain SPIA, which is an income annuity. We strip out the taxes. This is all turnkey, by the way. Taxes get stripped out, go right to the Internal Revenue Service, and then it funds a 5 to 10 pay. In this example for this gentleman, it was a 10 pay. By the way, you also have living benefits and cash value. And then at death, the death benefit now goes for the family. So in that gentleman's situation, he actually ended up having about $4.5 million in IRA assets after I found everything out. We took $1.9 million. This is what I call my Columbus plan. $1.9 million. We're stripping out the taxes. It's a 20% effective tax rate. He's going to end up paying about $400,000 in taxes, but it's instantly buying a $3 million death benefit. So I looked at him and I said, do you know how brilliant you are? You figured out a way to get all of your money out of your IRA. And in the long run, you didn't end up paying a single cent in taxes. He goes, what are you talking about, Pete? You just told me I'm going to pay $400,000 in taxes. I said, but because you went through this process, do you realize in the long run, your family's actually going to be reimbursed for all the money that you paid in taxes? I said, could you be any more brilliant? He goes, he's a funny guy. He goes, as a matter of fact, I am pretty brilliant. And then he couldn't wait to get it going. And there was an issue with that case, by the way. In that example, he just had 3 mini TIAs. He goes, there's only one problem. I can't get any coverage. I looked right at him. I said, no, no, no. I need you. He goes, what are you talking about? I said, with survivorship life product, one of the spouses can be fully uninsurable. You'll still go on the policy. Your wife is going to get standard and this thing's going to work. He couldn't get it going fast enough. And we've done that multiple times since then. I just like to tell that story, the power behind this. Key considerations: liquidity, other assets must be available to support retirement until life policy can generate sufficient cash value to supplement retirement income. We're talking about using a survivorship life. Living benefits only pop up after the death of the first spouse. And actually, just let me give you, there's actually one company that's not true. You can actually have living benefits while both spouses are alive. Accessing, if you end up using the living benefits for something like a chronic illness, like a long-term care event, that would reduce the death benefit as well. But this is very powerful. Going back to what I said before, this is a way to take forever taxable money and turn it into never taxable money.